Hi everyone, it's Tyler from Laminart Industries. We have another video in our Getting Better Images series. Today we're going to go over composition. In the last video we talked about eye movement, so we're going to go a little bit more in depth and talk about the composition of your images and how it impacts an image in the feel and the read of it. So we're going to start off with this one image. It's one image that I've reproduced 5 times here. So the image in the middle is the original image, and the two on the left here, I've just done a bit of a closer crop. So the one immediately to its left, I zoomed in a little bit, and then in the one on the far left, I zoomed in a little bit tighter. The ones on the right here, I've not zoomed out, but I've added some foreground elements, which we'll talk about. So the two on the right here, we'll just show you what I did. So I took the full uncropped image, and then I added just some stock foliage. Just grabbed it quick off Google, just to show that, you know, what could be done. And then I also added a pillar on the right there. So so the one image here I'll get to it. So this image here just has the foliage, and this image here has the pillar. So we're just going to go over a few things with it. So the first image here is the unedited image right out of the camera. And for composition, this one is pretty good. It shows quite a bit of information that's going on in the scene, not just with the model. So it lets you know that it's an outdoor scene, it's by the pool, it's like a villa sort of feel to it. It has some background elements, it shows the skyline, it shows the city in the background. With the ones to the left, I've cropped it so it's a bit tighter, it's a bit more focused on the model, but as it gets progressively closer up into the face and it becomes more about the model, the sacrifice is that it's losing that background information. So you get a little bit in the second one here where you can see that it's that it is a villa, that it is outside, it could be a patio, whereas the one on the left, it could be, you know, maybe inside a bedroom kind of looking out. Maybe this pillar here is a wall. It's a bit hard to tell. You get the gist of it, but it's hard to tell without all that other information. With the center one here, as I mentioned, it has all that in. You get the total read of what's happening in the scene. With the ones on the right here, the one where I added the foliage and the one where I added the pillar, it's doing the same thing, but it's just creating more depth. It's putting the model more into the scene, as opposed to having it more like a painting, for example, where when you're composing a painting or a drawing, there are certain elements that you're going to focus on and certain elements you're going to leave out. Whereas the ones on the right, it pushes the model more into the scene. It gives it more of a realistic feel as opposed to a painterly or designed feel. And these can be good for different reasons. It really, probably the best reason is when it adds the depth. Let's just go back to the other one here. So with the image just like that, it's very nice and centered. It's very focused on the model. But as soon as we add in the foliage, or if you put a plant there when you're setting up your shots, it just helps add that depth now. So now she's more in the scene, whereas this one, she is the scene and everything is background. She's really the most foreground element. So by adding a foreground element, she becomes in the midground, which gives it a little more depth in the scene. And then by adding a column in front of the foliage here, put that back in, it really adds more depth. So now she's almost borderline getting into the background. She's still midground, but now that there's two elements in front of her, she's getting more into the mid background, as opposed to taking those out and now she's in the foreground. So if we take this one here and we've flipped it now, so if we start on the left here, it's really in the scene. It's more composed now, where we're sort of like an outside onlooker looking into a scene, and as it gets to the right, it gets progressively more zoomed in. So the one on the far right is a lot more of an intimate scene now, because we're up so close, where we're in the person's sort of comfort zone, whereas this one we're way outside. It's you know, we're behind the plant, we're behind the pillar, there's a lot of distance, so By doing it this way, it just helps create and flush out a scene a lot better, and then as we go progressively in, it's going to get a lot more intimate, get a lot more detailed, get a lot more focused on the model, which if we have our establishing shot already done, it's really going to help that, and then you can have a lot more of these intimate shots which convey a lot more emotion once you have an establishing shot. If you try and start from the get-go of the zoomed in, really close up, almost portrait-esque shots, it's not going to have all that full, expansive, comprehensive information of where it is, what it is, how it is. So once you've established that, then you can really go to town and start doing some of the more fun, close-up, emotional, impactful shots that way. So just to show it here, we have another... Yeah, so I've taken out... I've progressively zoomed in. I've taken out image 2 and 4, so this is 1, 3, and 5. So this is starting off as far zoomed out as we can. Ideally, you can take this concept and go even farther. I added some of the foreground elements here. If you're setting up your shots, you can already include them, so you can really zoom out extra. So this is sort of a false zoom out. But we start with this one where she's in the midground. She becomes more in the foreground in the second one. And in the last one, she's basically the whole composition of the of the image now. So, but this really illustrates how you can go and go from one scene here where it has all the information, progressively get closer, and have, you know, you could follow up with 2, 3, 4, or if you're doing an album or wall art, you could follow up with 4, 5, 6 more of something like this in different poses and different things like that. Also too, it's nice where it shows some of the background. There's the pool, there's the villa. So if you're doing some shots, once you've established all this, you could have her in the pool, you could have her leaning against the railing, you could have her leaning against the post or sitting by the pool. You could have a lot of different options, but now that you've established where she is, it's not going to look awkward if she's all of a sudden sitting in a chair or she's in the pool. And you know, if you just started with this, with the one on the right here, it may kind of throw people off where they think, well, I thought she was in her hotel room. You know, it's a bit of a jump now to go to the pool, but if you have the information of the pool, then it's a lot more of an easier transition for the eye and the mind to comprehend and process the story that you're trying to tell. So hopefully everyone enjoyed this episode in our Getting Better Images series, and we're going to close it out here and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks, everyone.